The year 2026 began with a jolt, sending shockwaves through the entire region and beyond. News tickers blazed across screens, Japanese and Philippine Coast Guards in joint standoff with Chinese fleet. The world's attention snapped to the South China Sea. This was no longer a distant possibility or a hypothetical scenario. It was unfolding in real time, right before everyone's eyes. Near the contested Second Thomas Shoal, a Philippine supply vessel was flanked not just by its own Coast Guard, but for the first time by a Japanese ship. This was unprecedented in the region's history. The world watched, transfixed, as ships from three powerful nations faced off in the choppy waters of the South China Sea, each move scrutinized by millions. This event marked a turning point. Two nations, separated by vast stretches of ocean, now bound together by a common challenge and a shared sense of urgency. For years, China had steadily expanded its influence, building artificial islands and expecting smaller nations to yield to its growing power. But now, resistance was no longer isolated or fragmented. It was coordinated, deliberate, and determined. The presence of the Japanese ship sent a powerful message. A statement Beijing could not ignore, signaling that the status quo had changed. The standoff, broadcast live to millions, showed Chinese vessels aggressively trying to block the convoy, escalating tensions to a fever pitch. Yet, the joint Japanese-Philippine formation held firm, moving with practiced coordination and unwavering resolve, refusing to be intimidated. The message was clear. The South China Sea is not China's private lake. The waters belong to all, and freedom of navigation must be defended. International law mattered, and nations were now willing to stand together, shoulder to shoulder, to uphold it. Ultimately, after hours of tense maneuvering, the Chinese fleet backed away, allowing the Philippine mission to proceed and marking a rare moment of success for the smaller nation. It was a small victory on the surface, but symbolically enormous. A public setback for Beijing's so-called gray zone tactics and a blow to its aura of inevitability. The incident proved that a united front, built on trust and cooperation, could counter China's pressure and change the balance of power. The headlines didn't just report a standoff. They announced a new strategic alignment in Asia, one that would shape the region's future. The quiet, unchecked expansion of Chinese power had finally met a united wall of resistance, and the world was watching closely. The Indo-Pacific had entered a new, more contested era, one where alliances mattered, and the balance of power was up for grabs. In early 2026, tension grips Asia, stretching from the polished corridors of power in Tokyo to the humble fishing villages of Palawan. The region wakes each day to a sense of uncertainty, as the sun rises over cities and coastlines bracing for what might come next. It's not a sudden jolt of fear, but a grinding, daily unease, like living next to a neighbor who is always testing your boundaries, never letting you truly relax. People check the news with anxious eyes, wondering if today will bring escalation or uneasy calm. China's ambitions to dominate the region now clash directly with its neighbor's sovereignty, fueling a contest that plays out in boardrooms, on the waves, and in the hearts of millions. In Japan, Chinese Coast Guard incursions near the Senkaku Islands have become routine, so frequent that they almost blend into the background, yet never lose their edge of danger. In the Philippines, fishermen are chased from their own waters by Chinese maritime militia, forced to abandon their livelihoods and traditions under the shadow of foreign vessels. China's strategy is clear: apply pressure in both the East and South China Seas, hoping to divide its rivals and overwhelm them with constant challenges. For a while, this approach seemed to work. Japan focused on defending the Senkakus, while the Philippines worried about the Spratlys, each nation isolated in its struggle. But by 2026, this divide-and-conquer tactic backfired. The relentless pressure became impossible to ignore, and the region's people began to see the bigger picture. Instead of sowing division, it sparked a shared sense of vulnerability and a new purpose. Ordinary citizens and leaders alike realized their fates were intertwined. Leaders in Tokyo and Manila now see their struggles as two fronts in the same battle, forging new alliances and strategies to stand together. This realization has forged a historic shift. An arc of resistance is now reshaping the region, as nations unite to defend their sovereignty and chart a new course for Asia's future. The Indo-Pacific's tensions center on two maritime zones, the East China Sea and the South China Sea. In the north, the Senkaku Islands are a daily stage for Japanese and Chinese patrols, with China's presence now permanent. China's goal: create a new status quo, eroding Japan's control through relentless pressure. In the south, China's 9-line claim overlaps with the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. Flashpoints like Scarborough Shoal and Second Thomas Shoal are battlegrounds for sovereignty. China uses blockades and harassment to isolate Philippine outposts and fishermen. The Philippines, outmatched in size, faces daily challenges to its rights and resources. This is more than a territorial dispute, it's a fight for national destiny. Under pressure, Japan and the Philippines have shifted from passive defense to active coordinated resistance. Japan has expanded its Coast Guard and redefined its security strategy, recognizing that South China Sea instability threatens its own interests. Security cooperation has deepened. Japan provides vessels, training, and a reciprocal access agreement for joint exercises. The Philippines, more assertive than ever, ramps up patrols and resupply missions, refusing to be intimidated. Journalists now document every mission, exposing China's actions to the world. This transparency turns each encounter into a global event, undermining China's deniability. Public support in both countries is strong, uniting them in defiance. Japan and the Philippines now see their fates as linked. Their partnership has evolved from friendship to a genuine strategic alliance. Together, they present a formidable challenge to China's ambitions. Look at a map. Japan and the Philippines anchor the first island chain, a natural barrier separating China from the Pacific. For China, breaking this chain is essential to project power. For Japan and the Philippines, holding it is key to defense. The islands act as unsinkable aircraft carriers, hosting sensors and missile batteries. Control over these landmasses allows monitoring and, if needed, denial of access to critical sea lanes. China's artificial islands are an attempt to breach this barrier. But joint resistance keeps the chain intact. The alliance with the US turns the chain into a coordinated defensive wall. Data and intelligence flow seamlessly between allies, multiplying their power. China now faces a multi-front, multinational response to any aggression. The first island chain is no longer a vulnerability, it's a shield of collective defense. China's expansion relies on gray zone tactics, coercion without open conflict. Japan and the Philippines have responded with integrated deterrence, using economic, legal, and information tools alongside military power. High-resolution video and radar data of incidents are released to the world within hours, backed by diplomatic pressure. Civilian coast guards trained to near military standards blur the line between law enforcement and defense. Joint exercises with the US ensure seamless escalation if needed. China now faces a dilemma: escalate and look like the aggressor, or be matched at every turn. The new approach strips away ambiguity and deniability. By rewriting the playbook, Japan and the Philippines are setting a new standard for resisting authoritarian pressure. Radical transparency is now a weapon. For years, China controlled the narrative in disputed seas. Now the Philippines and Japan use technology to expose China's actions in real time. Journalists and cameras document every encounter, often live-streamed to the world. These images provide undeniable proof, eroding China's denials and global standing. Japan publishes detailed records of Chinese incursions, creating a public archive of intimidation. This evidence galvanizes international support and complicates Beijing's decisions. Chinese commanders know their actions are being watched globally, creating hesitation. By shining a light on the gray zone, Japan and the Philippines hold China accountable. The playing field is finally leveling. The most significant shift is the feedback loop of resistance between North and South. Japan's stand in the East China Sea emboldens the Philippines in the South, and vice versa. China must now split its resources, unable to focus on a single front. Joint exercises and intelligence sharing give both nations a clearer picture of China's moves. The Philippines' transparency model inspires Japan and builds a broader coalition. Every incident in the South strengthens Japan's position in the North. This interconnectedness creates a virtuous cycle of defiance. China's divide-and-conquer strategy has backfired, forging a unified front. Resistance in one area now amplifies resistance everywhere. The mid-2020s mark a pivotal turning point in the Indo-Pacific, a region that has become the stage for a new era of strategic competition and shifting alliances. China's once unchecked advance across these waters has come to a halt. Its path to regional dominance is no longer assured or straightforward. Coordinated resistance from Japan and the Philippines, now working more closely than ever and backed by a network of powerful allies, has fundamentally shifted the balance of power. The US-Japan and US-Philippines alliances have been revitalized, but the real story is the emergence of a robust new partnership between Japan and the Philippines themselves. Their growing cooperation is now seen as a model for other Southeast Asian nations, many of whom are facing similar pressures and challenges from China's assertiveness. China's so-called gray zone tactics, those ambiguous incremental moves, have finally met their match in the form of determined, innovative, and united opposition. International scrutiny has intensified, damaging China's image on the world stage and making its diplomatic efforts far more complicated and contentious. Beijing now faces diminishing returns for its aggressive strategies, along with growing friction both abroad and at home. The dream of quiet, uncontested control over the region has faded, replaced by the reality of a long, costly, and uncertain struggle for influence. The future remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: Chinese dominance is no longer inevitable, and the region's fate is once again up for debate. This is now a story defined by contest, resilience, and the power of partnership. Nations standing together to defend their shared vision. The sailors of Japan and the Philippines, through vigilance and resolve, have held the line for a free and open order in the Indo-Pacific. What was once a two-front headache for Beijing has become the dawn of a new, more balanced era for Asia, one shaped by hope, unity, and the promise of a stable future.